For someone considering the role of co-editor for an ISO standard, it's important to keep in mind several sort of key points. I think first and foremost is, as a co-editor, the basic assumption is that if for some reason the actual editor or primary editor were to be unable to continue in that person's capacity, one of the co-editors typically needs to be in a position to step in and ensure the success of the project. So when considering that, editorships for ISO standards can vary in length of time depending on the type of document. But in the case of an international standard, it's not unrealistic to assume that you're making a potentially 3-year commitment to bring the project to its ultimate conclusion. In some cases, it could even be longer than that if the work starts in, for example, sort of a study phase or a preliminary work item, something of that nature. So, what we're talking about here is potentially fairly lengthy commitment, and so one should not just rush in to take on a position like this. However, there's something to be said about being directly involved in a project. So if you're part of the editing team, as a co-editor, you're going to have sort of the inside sort of how the standard is being worked on. In many cases, experts that are involved with the project, have at different phases of the project how specific ways of engaging. The editing team is basically responsible for taking that kind of information and producing the document, dealing with the project management phase of it, which can involve quite a bit of activity just in terms of scheduling meetings and things of that nature. So, again, as a co-editor, you may not be responsible for all those components, but my experience has been that often it's on a complex project, it'll be too much for just a project editor to do all that, and so the work will often get parceled up into distinct pieces for managing the whole project. As with project editors, co-editors need to be unbiased. You're neutral. You can be somebody who understands the particular area that's being worked on in the standard, but it's and that can bring value. It also can cause problems because this is not your document. This is a document that's being developed by a community of experts, national bodies, and liaisons. So being able to work in that kind of environment where you may have a strong opinion about the project, you might actually be better served in an expert capacity where you can more freely express your opinions. Where if you're on the editing team, you're really focused on taking the inputs from the various sources that come in and trying to deal with those in a way where consensus is achieved. And that consensus can be particularly challenging when you may have a few experts that have very different opinions, or in that case, national bodies could have very different opinions on the direction a project should go. So how one navigates that is particularly important. Again, as a co-editor, in sessions like where disposition and comments are being prepared, there can be a lot of dialogue that's taking place, a lot of discussion, but at the end of the editing session, the goal is to have gone through every comment and made a decision as to what is going to be done. Co-editors are often critical in capturing the details on what was discussed and what was decided. It could take the form of they may be presenting the information and the editor is doing it, or vice versa, and it sort of depends on the team. It's easy to underestimate the amount of passion that can be displayed in some of these settings. So it's very important to have the ability to, in the heat of discussions, to be able to remain calm and not take many of the things that will be said as personal attacks. It's really comes down to, in my experience, has been it's the passion that's there, which is why we do this, is we have a passion for whatever the standard is being written about. So as a co-editor, you have this potential of having to step in. So that means you need to understand the current state of directives and how they are applied. You need to have excellent communication skills, and that's both oral and written, because at the end of the day, we're producing written standards, and depending on the language that it's being written in, it's critical to have that so that it's easy to understand. And in my case, as a native English speaker and working on standards that are written in English, one of the challenges that I've been confronted with is writing the text in a way that can be translated into other languages without adding complexity and whatnot. So again, as a co-editor, as part of the editing team, you are responsible for coming up with that the text meets the criteria that's been established in various discussions and decisions, but is also consumable by a wide range of parties. So lots of potential work for co-editors. An important aspect of co-editors, again, with my experience, one may not want to take on the primary editor role, the project editor, just due to not having experience. And I've seen many people start out as a co-editor. It might be a project that has an experienced editor, and there may be a couple of co-editors. Often this may be the very first time that the individual is going through that experience, and it's definitely accelerates the learning process when you're able to sort of function in a team like that, and very very quickly you could find, if this is an area that you're interested in, taking on actual editor roles down the road.